It's a great honor and privilege to be here at the kever of Rav Yosef Engel. I want to thank my good friend Rav Mark Block, who when we were making arrangements for this trip, Rav Yosef Engel was one of the highlight destinations that we had in the entire country. We came to Vienna for this kever. And then when there was discussion, we weren't sure whether we'd be able to squeeze this in, but Mark made sure that this would be part of our itinerary. And I have to say it's a very special moment for me because over the last recent years, I've become very attached to the Torah of Rav Yosef Engel, who lived from 1858 to 1920, passed away approximately 62 years old. Rav Yosef Engel composed many svarim, so we have the Beis HaOitzar, which is literally an encyclopedic volume of Talmudic concepts, something called Lekach Toiv, which are Chakiros Da'iraisa, Talmudic investigations. Shivim Panim L'Torah, listen to this. There's a question in Rav Ashi between what he says in Psachim Mem Daled and what he says in Zvachim Tzadik Zayin Amud Beis, and this is a sefer about that stira with 70 answers to the question. Okay, the name of it is Shivim Panim L'Torah. Then you have Gevurei Shmainim, 80 answers to a question. Oitzrois Yosef Chidush Van Shulchan Aruch, Gilyoinei Hashas, not to be confused with Gilyoinei Hashas, Gilyoinei Hashas Chidushim on Shas. You have Shev Dinechemta, Agadatus, Chaysen Yosef, Tziyunim LaTorah, Tiferes Yosef, Shal Sechuvas Ben Pairas, and Maimer Halavana, Mamorim on Kabbalah. Rav Yosef Engel was a brilliant Talmud Chacham, but we haven't even began to scratch the surface of his gadlus. I'll just tell you, in terms of his smarts and mili da'alma and practical matters. So there was once a particular dispute between two women. They were fighting over a pile of laundry. Zeh omer kula shali, v'zeh omer chatzi shali. One woman said it's all mine. The other one said no, half is mine. So Yosef Engel was thinking what to do. So he said like this. He said, "Give me a day." He told his kids, "Take some dirty socks, throw it into the pile." So they did. The next morning, he turns to them, "Do you still maintain your opinion?" So one woman said, "It's all mine." And the other woman said, no, only half is mine, but not these socks. So he said, I know she's telling the truth and the other one's not. Another instance, there was a situation where the butchers were pawning off treif meat as kosher meat because they couldn't take the loss in case the meat wasn't shechted properly. So he decided to make a takana, and the takana was that he made a partnership between Jews and Gentiles in the butchery business, where every time a Jew sold kosher meat, the Gentile would take a small cut, and every time the kosher meat was found to be treif, the Gentile had to buy it at full price. This way, a Jew had nothing to gain by pawning off kosher meat as treif, because anyway he would have someone to buy it. And he called this partnership a play on words. Actually, what the Mishnah says in Kedushin, Toiv shebetabachim shutafay shel Amalek. The Mishnah says that the best butchers are partners with Amalek, which is a pejorative criticism of butchers, that you can't trust them. But so the butchers didn't like the name for this. No, Rav Yosef Engel explained, Toiv sheberoifim, if you want to be a good butcher and you don't want to have the temptation of money, shutafay shel Amalek, you should make a partnership with Amalek. Okay, but be it as it may, really to capture the greatness of Rav Yosef Engel, you need to get a little flavor for Rav Yosef Engel's methodology, and that is, he was such a master of Bavli, Yushalmi, Sifra, Kabbalah, Chasidus, and his Mamorim are a beautiful synthesis and tapestry, weaving together Kol HaTorah Kula. If I may, I just want to give you an example. In Masechta Megillah Daled Amud Beis, as well as another 18 places in Shas that Rav Yosef Engel discovers, Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, when he states his opinion in the Mishnah, it says, Rabbi Omer, Omer Ani. Rabbi says, I say. No kidding, I say. You're the one talking. Who else is talking? What do you mean? We don't find Rabbi Akiva Omer Omer Ani. What does it even mean? Rabbi Omer Omer Ani. Rabbi says, I say. No kidding. If you're talking, I don't have to say. Glatstein says, I say. I'm talking. What is it, and why is it that Rebbe is the only Tana in Shas that we find this expression, Rebbe Omer Ani? Rav Yosef Engel says 19 times. We don't find it by anyone else, except he finds it in a Yushalmi and a Tosefta, one by Reb Shimon and one by Rav Yosef Aglili, but all the overwhelming majority of the cases are Rebbe. What is the meaning of it, and why only by Rebbe? So Rav Yosef Engel says two explanations, but just to give you a little flavor of his mastery of Kol HaTorah Kula, he says firstly that the Gemara says in Soita, Mishameis Rebbe Batla Anava. When Rebbe died, humility ceased. So Rebbe was the paragon and the quintessential man of humility. Well, just like in today's language, the way the Achronim speak, or the way the halachic literature talks, is if somebody says a Torah chidush, they say Nira lefi ani azdaiti. It would seem, in my humble opinion, the predecessor of that expression, Nira lefi ani azdaiti, it would seem, according to my humble opinion, was when Rebbe said Omer ani. Meaning what Rebbe was doing is this was a sign of humility. Rebbe's saying, you don't have to accept my opinion. You don't have to listen to me. You're not subject. Omer ani, this is just my opinion. That's how Rav Yosef Engel interprets Rebbe's expression of Omer ani, based on many Gemaras that we know that Rebbe was specifically humble. But then, says Rav Yosef Engel, and this is where he brings in Chasidus. The Talmidei Baal Shem Tov emphasize the concept that every word a person says, they're not saying it. Hashem makes you say it. Whatever you do, whatever you say, Hashem makes you do. All you could do is choose to do something. But ultimately, when something is performed, it's God. God is carrying it out through you. Rebbe understood that anything that he said was just Rebbeinu Shalom talking. Now, we know from a number of Gemaras and Shas, for example, the Rav Yosef Engel brings down that Ani is the language of the Shechina. The Shechina is called Ani. Like in the Gemara in Sukkah, Memhei Amud Aleph, Ani v'hoi hoishiana. Remember on Sukkot by Hoshanas we say Ani and Hoi should help. What does that mean? I should help myself? No, Ani is one of the 72-letter names of Hashem. Rashi in Sukkah brings down Hashem has 72 names. One of them is Ani. Ani is the name of Hashem. Likewise, remember the Gemara in Sukkah Nun Gimel? When Hillel would come to a Simchas Beis HaShoeva, he would say, Im ani kan, if I'm here, hakol kan, everyone is here. That sounds very arrogant. No, what Hillel meant was, Im ani kan, if God is here, hakol kan, everyone is here. Ani is the name of Hashem. So when Rebbe said, Omer ani, the Shechina is talking. So this is the deeper meaning, the Kabbalistic meaning of what Rebbe was saying. And that is Rebbe recognizing his frailty and how we're really all just, puppets and pawns in the hands of Hashem. Rebbe saying, Omer ani, this is how Hashem led me to understand this particular incident. So these are two explanations that Rav Yosef Engel gives. One sort of using Chachma, one using Sifrei Chasidus, and then here you have his full Bekios of Kol HaTorah Kula. Says Rav Yosef Engel, where in Tanakh do you find the words Omer ani? In Tehillim Parak Memhei. Lam natseach al shoishanim livnei koirach maskil shir yedidos. Rochash libi davar toiv. Omer ani masai lamelech l'shoini eit sofer mohir. Well, says Rav Yosef Engel, that if Rebbe is the only one who says the words Omer ani, then in Tehillim when it says Omer ani, who must it be a remez to? Rebbe. What was Rebbe's greatest contribution to the Jewish people? He had a great idea. What was the great idea? That the Torah, which was Baal Peh, was being lost by the Jewish people, and it needed to be committed to writing. The only problem is we weren't allowed to write it down, because Dvarim Shabal Peh, Yefshar Litnam B'chsav. The oral law cannot be written. But Rebbe held that because Eis Lasos Lashem, in a time to perform for God, Heferu Terasecha, sometimes you need to break the law to keep the law. Well, if this is the only time in Tanakh it says Omer ani, and we know Omer ani was Rebbe's expression, this must be a remez to Rebbe, and it's exactly what it is. Rachash libi davar toiv. I have a great idea. Who had a great idea? Rebbe. How do we know it's Rebbe? Omer ani, because I say reverence to Rebbe. What do I say? Masai lemelech. We need to act for the king. Meis lasois lashem. We need to act for the king. Masai lasois lamelech lashem. What is the eitzah? L'shoini, that which I say with my mouth. 8 soifer mohir we need to record. Oyam v'noira. The only time in Tanakh Omer Ani appears clearly refers to Rabbi, and a clear reference to Rabbi's great idea of to record the oral law. Says Rav Yosef Engel, Libi Davar Toiv ends with a Yud Reish Beis, Rabbi. Says Rav Yosef Engel, the word L'shoini is Gematria Yehuda Hanasi. So here we have a maimer that spins together Bekios in dozens and dozens of Gemara, Sifrei Chasidus, Psukim in Tanakh, Goin Shebagainim. If I can, I want to tell you one more example, if I may. He has a tremendous mamar called Chasar Achas. We know in Gematria you're allowed to be off by 1. But he brings dozens of rayas that you're allowed to be off by 1. I'll give you one example. Yaakov Avinu says, Im Lavan Garti v'echar arata. Says Rashi, Im Lavan Garti. I lived with Lavan. Garti is the Gematria Taryag. I lived with Lavan and I kept Taryag mitzvahs. So Lavan, you're not going to be able to overcome me. Ask Hagoin Rav Yosef Engel, what do you mean Yaakov kept 613 mitzvahs? He lived with 2 sisters. He married 2 sisters, so he only kept 612. Zaraya, then when it comes to Gematria, you could be off by 1. Another proof he brings. The Gemara says, next week's parsha, it says, Ma Hashem leikecha doiresh mimcha. What does God ask you? Shoyel mimcha. What does He ask you? Ki imli yira, says the Gemara, al tikri ma. Don't read it. What? But meya. Mikan, that we make 100 brachos. But it doesn't say meya. It says ma. So raya, that just because the missing aleph is not missing. You could be off by 1. And he brings a mimer weaving in kala Torah kula, that when it comes to gematria, it is permitted to be off by 1. I'll give you one last example of a subject that Rav Yosef Engel discusses at length, and that is he has a maimar that he said on Lag BaOmer Le'iloi Nishmas. Whose yahrzeit? Rabbi Yosef Engel was the Rav where? Krakow. So he said this maimar Le'iloi Nishmas the Ramah. The number 5 is always associated with gratitude. For example, of the additional brachas of Shemona Esrei, Avos, Gevuros, Kedusha, Ritzei is Avoida, Moedim is number 5. Next, it says that anyone who is Mesameach Chasan Mekala will be Zoichet to 5 koilos. Kol Sasain, V'kol Simcha. Kol Chasan, V'kol Kala, Kol Oimrim, Haidu Es Hashem. It says God has 5 kinyanim: Torah, Shamayim va'aretz, Avraham, Yisrael, Beis Hamikdash. The Beis Hamikdash is called Migdal David. David is a lashon of Haida. Leah, after having 4 children, she said Hapam Oide. So Rabbi Yosef Engel brings many rayas that the number 5 is associated with Haida. Lag BaOmer, then he says, is Haid Sheba Haid. First of all, which midah of the spherois is Haida? Haid. Gedula, Gevura, Tiferes, Netzach, Haid. Haid is Haida, the 5th one. Therefore, Lag BaOmer is the 5th day of the 5th week, is gratitude, Sheba gratitude. Therefore, in the Parak of Tehillim, in Parak Samach Zayin, that we said, by the way, the Marshal wrote a whole sefer on that, which has 49 words in it for Keneged, the Sfiras HaOmer. There's one pasuk that repeats itself twice. Yoiducha amim elokim, yoiducha amim kulam. It says that pasuk 2 times to indicate that the Hoid Sheba Hoid, the whole purpose of the Sfiras HaOmer, is gratitude to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So Rabbi Yosef Engel was known to have this incredible way to weave together all dimensions of Torah. The whole Torah was open before him, and in his chus and in being in his presence, we hope that he should be a conduit for us to have a greater connection to Chachmas HaTorah and the depth and the beauty and the majesty and the wisdom of the Torah. May it increase in all of us with our own efforts and with tremendous Siyata D'Shmaya. Thank you so much.